Dynasty owners, it's Jay Pounds. Welcome back to another weekly video of rebuilding. This week, the title, as you see there, is Let's Rebuild Steve Van Tassel's Team. Before I get into things, please like the channel, subscribe to the video. I said that backwards. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell, as well as commenting down below. It helps Dynasty owner out tremendously, and it is greatly appreciated. Um, Before we get into today's video, as I've been doing the whole season, let's go ahead and break down this week's games before we get into things here. This week's games, we had the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and it was a choke job by the Chiefs. They were up 21-10 at halftime. It should have been 24-10. They had the most bonehead play call I've ever seen. You always, especially in a championship game, to go up two full scores, you take it every time. I don't know why they didn't kick the field goal there. I don't know why Patrick Mahomes didn't just throw the ball away. But nonetheless, choke job or not, the Bengals fought hard for 60 minutes plus overtime. They definitely earned the victory. They earned the right to be called AFC champions, and they will get a shot at a Super Bowl trophy. It is very weird to me to see an Ohio team in the Super Bowl, man. I just can't really wrap my head around it yet. It's interesting. My whole family none of them are Bengals fans, but you would think they are. They are all so excited for an Ohio team to be in the Super Bowl. They're just pure joy on their faces. We were at my grandma's for we have a Sunday lunch every now and again, pretty much every week actually, and we were over there for the game, and just pure joy on their faces. So I'm definitely pulling for the Bengals. Glad they won. Glad to see it's somebody else. I love parity in sports unless it's my team's winning. In the second matchup, we had a divisional matchup. Crazy to see in a championship game. We had the Rams versus the 49ers. With the Rams winning, they are the second team in a row to have a home game in the Super Bowl after it never happening before. I think that's an absolutely crazy stat that just for it to have happened back-to-back years. The 49ers had a similar game to the Chiefs, man. They were up 10 points in the fourth quarter and blew it. A lot of the blame's getting placed on Jimmy G, and he just didn't have time to throw the ball. That defensive line for the Rams were all over Jimmy G all night long, and it got ugly pretty quick. In the fourth quarter, not obviously I shouldn't say pretty quick, but come fourth quarter it got ugly, and the 49ers just weren't able to run the ball, and that was really the difference of the game. So nonetheless, we got a Bengals versus Rams Super Bowl. My early pick right now is the Rams. I'm not gonna lock that in until next week's video. But if for some reason there is no video next week, I guess I'm going with the Rams. As far as this week's video, as I said, we are rebuilding Steve Van Tassel's team. He reached out to me. He's not much of a rebuilder. He wanted maybe some points and tips. I'm sorry, my daughter's interrupting. Okay, go ahead, sweetheart. He needed some tips and tricks and things like that for his team, and please stay back there, okay? And obviously, I enjoy helping out. This is kind of my thing. This off season, I'm wanting to do is interview different team owners and things like that, and get their perspectives on rebuilds and different strategies and trade values and all sorts of stuff like that. Just info that'll help you guys out when it comes to making decisions for your own personal teams. So I'm glad Steve let me do this. Thank you, Steve. And as well, if you guys disagree with anything, you just want to put your opinion in on something, please feel free to comment down below or get a hold of either one of us on Twitter. I think that is about all I got there. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Nope. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes, folks. This rebuild article, video, whatever you want to call it here, is going to be broke down into 5 different categories. I am going, technically 6, I guess if you want to count. I'm going to go over his current roster, and then I'm going to go ahead and cover building blocks, players I think he should trade, players to cut, players to hold, and a potential amnesty candidate. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. He does, as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but he does have all of his draft picks. He has not acquired any yet, And I think that's all we got there. Let's go ahead and get into the article. I'm going to split screen here for you so you can see this current roster here. For his quarterbacks, we have Patrick Mahomes, Taysom Hill, Teddy Bridgewater, and Mason Rudolph. The only free agent out of the bunch is Teddy Bridgewater. You can see their contracts there. I'm not going to go ahead and go over them at this moment. The running backs, we have Devin Singletary, Darrell Williams, Philip Lindsay, Mike Davis, Salvon Ahmed, Tony Jones, David Johnson, Tyson Williams, Chris Carson, and Raheem Mostert, with many of those being free agents, as you see here. Really quickly, Philip Lindsay, Salvon Ahmed, Tony Jones, David Johnson, Tyson Williams, Raheem Mostert are all free agents, as well as Darrell Williams. I don't know if I said him or not. He was up at the top. As far as wide receivers, we have Jacoby Myers, free agent, Russell Gage, free agent, Chase Claypool, Jerry Jeudy, Alan Lazard, free agent, Marquez Callaway, Scott Miller, Isaiah McKenzie, free agent, James Washington, free agent, Nick Westbrook-Kine is a free agent, and Khalif Raymond is a free agent. Last but not least, we have the tight ends, Hunter Henry, Brevin Jordan, Will Dissly, free agent, and Jawan Johnson, free agent, as well as Robert Tonyan, free agent. All right, that's the roster he is currently working with right now. If you need to pause the video or anything, go ahead and do that. Here are the quarterbacks, running backs. Here are wide receivers, tight ends. And now moving on. The building blocks. Building blocks are players that you can have on your roster and you know they are going to be good for several years without worry. Somebody that you can just plug and play in your lineup, not have to worry about it for a long, long time. And they're just players that you don't really, really want to trade if you can help it. I should probably scooch over here so we can sit in my pretty mug. But they're players you don't want to trade if you don't have to. Nobody on your roster should ever be untouchable. I know some people might say Jonathan Taylor is untouchable and things like that, but to be honest, if I'm starting a long-term rebuild today, I'm moving on from Jonathan Taylor. I'm because you're going to get tremendous value for him, and it's going to speed your rebuild up quite a bit, and he is going to significantly help towards winning games, and then that's kind of what you want to avoid a little bit when you're rebuilding. You don't want to tank, obviously. That is not something we condone here at Dynasty Owner, but you do want to, gracefully lose games, if you want to call it that, I guess. Steve's building blocks are Patrick Mahomes, Jerry Jeudy, Chase Claypool, and a little bit of a surpriser here, Brevin Jordan. As far as the building blocks here, I know they might be a little questionable, all but Mahomes, obviously. Chase Claypool, I do not feel is a question mark either. He was very underdeveloped coming into the NFL, and he has done nothing but produce and look like an absolute superstar since he's been there, future superstar since he's been in here. I know he doesn't have a quarterback this year, but you're rebuilding. You don't need him. You don't need him to produce right away. Obviously, he's going to, but you don't need him to be consistent and a star right away. You can wait for that to happen. And honestly, the trajectory he's on. He's going to be a future stud. Jerry Jeudy, I absolutely love. He is a very, very good route runner, and I think a lot of his unsuccessful games come to do with he is a timing based receiver. He needs a good, solid quarterback that plays off of that, and Drew Lock has not been that. He was hurt a lot of the time with Teddy Bridgewater, so you really can't go there. And I don't know that Bridgewater's that guy either. So I'm still a big believer in Jerry Jeudy, especially if the Broncos can pull somebody like Aaron Rodgers out of their ass this offseason. You'd never know. And as far as Brevin Jordan, man, he just had a couple good games. Tight ends take a while to develop, and somebody like that, maybe Davis Mills does earn the starting job, and Brevin Jordan ends up being that guy. But either way, he looked solid when he did get shots, and I'm interested to see what happens to him. I probably shouldn't call him a building block. He should probably be a player to hold. But nonetheless, I'm calling him that because of the position he plays and how long it takes them to generally develop. Actually, I'll probably end up moving him to a player to hold before the article. I just No, I'm leaving him there. I'm planting my flag on Brevin Jordan. I feel like he's going to be a good tight end. Don't trade him, Steve. You're not going to get good enough value for him. You're going to get a third round pick for the guy, and it's just not worth it. The players to trade away. These are players that can get you value right now, but they're not going to be worth a much for you come 3 years, and you really just need to start acquiring some draft capital. That way you can kind of build through the draft, especially here in Dynasty Owner. It's very important. Obviously with contracts and things like that. The more flexibility you have, the more opportunity to to take on bad contracts, I guess. I've acquired a lot of draft picks by taking on bad contracts, including first round picks. But his players I would look to trade are Teddy Bridgewater, Devin Singletary, Mike Davis, Darrell Williams, Raheem Mostert, Chris Carson, Philip Lindsay, Russell Gage, Allen Lazard, James Washington, Hunter Henry, and Jawan Johnson. I've just went through and highlighted a few of these guys. I'll go ahead and go through and look at them to you. The first player I would look to move on from immediately is Devin Singletary. He had an excellent end of the season in playoffs. Kind of like a little playoff Lenny 2.0 type deal going there. But you should have somebody in your league that is just wanting to solidify the running back spot a little bit, and they're getting a little antsy because it's the off season already, and they're biased because of this run Singletary just had. But I would trade Devin Singletary immediately, and especially before the Bills draft the running back, because I still think they're going to. Chris Carson's a tough one to judge, but I would move on to him. You may end up needing to hold him for a little while, but he's still a trade candidate no matter how long you have to hold him for. He is always going to be a trade candidate. Maybe he leaves Seattle. Maybe Rashad Penny gets hurt again. I God hope he doesn't, because he looked fantastic. But you never know what's going to happen in the NFL, especially in Seattle, where Rashad Penny's been banged up his entire career and just went on the stretch of a lifetime. So the future for Carson at the moment is a little dim, but I would hold him for a little bit, and he will have some type of trade value at some point moving forward here. Hunter Henry, I know this one's probably tough for Steve. He is a diehard Patriots fan, and Hunter Henry was a pretty solid producer for him this year. But in my opinion, if you can find somebody to give you a second or third round pick or something like that, maybe a nice some in my beard or my mustache here. I don't know what it is. But if you can find somebody to give you something decent for Hunter Henry, I would do it. I like Hunter Henry, I do, but I think his ceiling's a little bit limited. And at $12.5 million, I'm just looking for a little bit more pop out of my tight end than Hunter Henry has seemed to offer throughout his career. I think that's all we got here. Yep, that's all we got for the players to trade. If you guys are interested in me doing another video after this one comes out on the players that I didn't cover here, maybe you got some of them on your team or something, feel free to comment down below, and I will definitely do that. The players I'm recommending Steve hold. Now, these players are not necessarily players that are going to be future superstars, though they can be. But these are basically players that they're not going to bring much value in a trade right at the moment. But if you hold them and they end up hitting this season, or falling into the right role, or whatever the case may be, they're going to bring back a lot more value than they will right now. And those players are Mason Rudolph, Tony Jones, Jacoby Myers, Isaiah McKenzie, Marquez Callaway, Nick Westbrook-Kine, and Robert Tunyon. Um, I only covered again. I'm only going to cover a few of these guys. I'm going to start with the obvious here, which is Mason Rudolph. He is an obvious hold candidate at the moment, with Pittsburgh not having a QB, him being basically anointed the QB by Mike Tomlin. I don't see no reason he's not going to be the starter, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's personally going to happen, but until you see otherwise, there's no reason not to hold him. Um, if Pittsburgh goes out and signs somebody like, God, I hope it's not Jimmy Garoppolo, but if they get Garoppolo or Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or probably even Mitchell Trubisky, I would go ahead and drop Mason Rudolph, and unless you got a ton of cap space and you don't have to. But he is definitely a hold at the moment. The next player I want to talk about is Jacoby Meyer. He has had quite a few good years now. I do like the outlook on him. He could be almost considered a building block, though I probably should put him in there if I put Brevin Jordan in there. I just don't want to, with the Brevin Jordan thing, man, I just don't want to see Steve trade him for a third round pick or something like that, and then he blows up. I just think he's got some potential there, and that's something you should hold on to for the value you're getting in return for him now. That being said, Jacoby Myers, I don't think you're going to get solid value out of him right now. He's getting a new contract here soon. He may end up leaving New England, but I do think the talent will win out there and he'll prevail wherever he's at. So that being said, please, please, please don't cut Jacoby Myers. I know your heartstrings won't let you. They're tugging on it. You're definitely going to hold Jacoby Myers here. And the next guy I want to talk about real quick is Isaiah McKenzie. Cole Beasley should be a cut candidate at the Bills. Emmanuel Sanders is not going to be back. It should be Diggs, McKenzie, and Gabriel Davis all the way next year. So definitely do not get rid of him. And the last guy I would like to talk about, actually, let's hit two more. Let's go Robert Tonyan real quick. He's coming off a season-ending injury. I would not trade him until late 2022. I just don't think you're going to get enough value for him. And then Marquez Callaway, I would hold on to him. You know, obviously, if he comes out in 2022 and shows he's a close to a number one guy and he's going to start producing and things like that, then yeah, by all means, go ahead and trade him. But if not, just keep him. It's not going to hurt you any. It's less than $1 million against the cap, and at worst, he brings you back some value in the trade. Or at worst, you got to cut him. At best, he gets you some solid value in a trade. After that, we have the players to cut. The players you want to cut are just basically players that you don't see having a shot in 2 or 3 years as a future starter, or player even this coming season as a future starter, or somebody that can produce for your rebuilding team here in a couple of years. And those players are Salvon Ahmed, David Johnson, Tyson Williams, Scott Miller, Khalif Raymond, Will Dissly, and Taysom Hill. I'm just going to go through real quick on a couple of these guys on why I'm cutting them and things like that. Salvon Ahmed, man, he had his chance this year. If you can't beat out the likes of Duke Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, Malcolm Brown, and Myles Gaskin, you're not going to beat out another depth chart. It's just not going to happen. And it's sad for me to say I was a very big Ahmed truther coming out of Washington, and it just never panned out for him, unfortunately. David Johnson is somebody some people might hold, but I don't think you should at all. Same thing here as with Ahmed. If you can't beat out Rex Burkhead, you're probably not going to beat out another NFL depth chart. Let's just be honest here. Rex Burkhead shouldn't even be starting. And then we got Khalif Raymond. He's just somebody that he's probably going to be a special teams player moving forward. He fell into a perfect role for him to produce a little bit this year, and that's kind of about the length you're going to get with him. And last but not least, Taysom Hill. I would just outright cut him. With Sean Payton moving on, I do not see him getting a starting job there next season. It'll probably end up being Winston unless he moves on. Then maybe Taysom Hill, but at $12.5 million, I'm just freeing up the cap space and not worrying about it, especially with the new contract and things like that. You just get you get free $12.5 million in cap space for instead of holding on to him and then having to cut him and paying that fee. It's just not worth it. Cut him in if you need to. Get him for $1 million dynasty dollars. If he becomes a starter, bid on him, whatever. But that's all I got for the players to cut. And now for the last category here is who would I amnesty, and that is nobody. If you are not familiar with the amnesty, it is where you can cut a player for no fee at any point in time in their career or contract. It's a very beneficial thing to have, especially when these contracts get big. Like if you're going to cut Nuke Hopkins, it's going to cost you a lot. I should have did the math on that one. I wasn't even planning on using him as an example, so that's why I didn't. But nonetheless, I would not amnesty anybody on Steve's roster. What I would do at this point is probably just hold on to my amnesty. You can throw them in trades, but from what I've seen, the most value from your amnesty that you can get as a rebuilding owner is holding it until in season and finding a contender that has a bad contract like Julio Jones was this season and trading them and making them attach a first round pick to it for taking that bad contract off their books. I've done it 3 or 4 times now since I've played Dynasty Owner. I rebuild. I like rebuilding. Let's just I blow things up quickly after startup drafts if it's not looking pretty. Let's just put it that way. But it works out beautifully. I highly suggest you guys looking into that if you are planning on trading an amnesty. I would just hold it and trade for a bad salary instead, or a bad contract instead. That's all I got for you guys this week. That went a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but I knew it would. That's why I told you in the beginning that it was going to. Please be sure to check out Matt, Nate, and Steve's articles and videos on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We got Steve on Monday, Nate on Thursday, and Matt on Friday. That's all I got for you guys this week. Stay safe out there. Good luck on your 2021, 2022 chase for the ring, and we will catch you guys.